much. Can you listen? Yeah? Okay, so as you were saying, we are going to speak today about all-in-one platform. As you know, this is an emerging trend that is all around the world. So first of all, I would like to introduce a little bit about myself. I'm Rory, I'm the general manager for EMEA of Gibbs. Just to let you know about Gibbs, Gibbs is all-in-one platform. We are a expense management platform that we have credit, debit, we have cross-border payments and local rails. So this is a little bit about myself, and then I would love that they can introduce. We have a really great speakers today, so please feel free to introduce yourself. Uri, if you want.
Yes, hi everyone. This is Uri Tintore, co-CEO at Belvo. So at Belvo, we're building a financial infrastructure for innovators in Latin America to allow them to access financial data, process financial data, and move money through very easy APIs to connect. So probably you can imagine similar models in Europe, open banking models such as Tink through Layer. So some call us the Tink of Latin America, of the Plat of Latin America. And what we're allowing is to companies to access financial information in order to provide easy financial services. So kind of in a way for this panel, I think we are so part of the building blocks that some of these all-in-one platforms are using to provide services.
Thank you, Uri. Julia?
Hello, I'm Julia. I'm the VP of Sales at Swan, and Swan is a banking-as-a-service platform, a European player that is also lending to other countries, such as Spain. And basically what banking-as-a-service does is helping companies that aren't banks to issue banking features, such as opening accounts, issuing cards, doing SEPA payments, etc., without the need of the backbone technology or the license that we provide in white label. And just as a quick example, because it's a bit of a complex matter, just imagine retailers such as Carrefour in France that want to launch a debit card loyalty program, and they want to do it fully white label, but they don't want to fully develop everything from scratch, so they could rely on a banking-as-a-service like us to launch this project. Similar to Uri and Belvo, we are here to a bit democratize finance and help these companies that are all-in-one finance platforms to reach their goals.
Nice. Thank you very much. Mario?
Yeah. So my name is Mario Cantero. I'm CEO and founder of Car Dynamics. I'm probably the older founder here on time after 36 years in payments. And Car Dynamics basically is a B2B platform that connects the world of banks and the world of merchants to soften frictions in the subscription economy. And basically, we understood 4 mega trends under which to create what we are doing. One is we believe that the act of paying, as separate from the act of purchasing, will disappear. And that, the consequence of that is that you will have payment tools on file for everything you do in your daily life. The second trend is that we believe, joining Uri, that open banking is happening seriously, meaning the basic spirit of open banking, that it is my data as a consumer and not the bank's data, and I can share it as I wish. The fourth trend is that there is an emerging obsession of banks to take care of everyday banking and create convenience all around what they do, and subscription is a good part of that. And the last trend basically is that merchants want better and more data every day to better segment and better serve their customers. And underneath that mega trends, what we have created is not only a technical platform, but a legal platform that allows to interchange data between banks and merchants for a number of things. Right now, what we offer is that you can enroll at a merchant from your bank, or you can take care of replacing your payment tools with one click at a variety of merchants if you change bank, if you change product within the bank, and so on. But we see a feature in which data flows to both sides, like, for example, merchant invoices being able to be stored at the bank's app so that you have the charge and the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Arvind?
Thanks. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. My name is Arvind Singh. co-founder, CEO of Hula, from probably the farthest distance. I'm based in Singapore. Hula is a buy now, pay later credit business that looks at bringing merchants and consumers together and allowing customers to essentially buy things and pay for it over short-term installments. Lots of reference businesses across Europe that do similar things. And I think where my perspective is probably a bit different from the rest of the panel is our business leverages a lot of the infrastructure that others build in order to provide this service to both consumers and merchants. So we tap on existing payments infrastructure on the merchant side, and for identity verification, other solutions like that on the consumer side, we're tapping into other fintech providers, infrastructure providers to do that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I was telling you at the beginning, Gives is an all-in-one platform. We are born to help companies that they operate all over the world. So the first question, that is super open question, is what is all-in-one platform? Which is the difference between all-in-one platform versus the traditional finance providers, banks? What is an all-in-one platform?
I mean, I would say that that is what characterizes an all-in-one platform. It is openness, meaning that you can connect to your target markets very openly, very easily. So I would say openness is the key to that thing.
Okay.
I think in our part of the world, there's each country, essentially in Southeast Asia, has a few giants that typically stem from some other digital service. So whether it's transport or e-commerce, and they've gone into financial services to essentially build an ecosystem that provides everything, day-to-day payments, lending to both the service providers, merchants, consumers, full essentially banking services to the point where they're now getting a pseudo-banking license that's digital banking to be a non-FI, but able to even take deposits. So that's kind of the lens that we see in Southeast Asia.
I think also technology is the key also to that question. Whereas traditional banking is now doing a lot of efforts to stay up to date in terms of technology and innovation. Still, I think there's a gap between new coming companies that are completely disrupting the way that we as consumers operate and the way as businesses offer their solutions. And I think it's a bit self-explanatory, but they can offer quite a few more options than traditional banking.
Yeah, I think we've been very used to, some all-in-one platforms, which are actually banks that are trying to provide all types of financial services to us. In many cases, maybe not through the best user experiences, but what we're seeing is that there are a lot of companies, it's very similar to what has been discussed here, which is there are many companies that maybe we didn't think them as providers of financial services that are integrating a lot of the building blocks and a lot of the financial infrastructure to actually do that, right? So we're seeing, big companies, big retailers, e-commerce platforms that are getting into financial services. And I think for the way we see it is that every software company, as I think this is pretty commonly heard in many conferences, but every software company is a financial service company. And a lot of the focus that these companies have might not be the financial services themselves, but they need that. So these type of platforms are adopting more and more these type of building blocks to provide the best experience and the best service to their users.
Oh, okay, thank you. One important thing, for example, for us at Gives, we wanted to launch Gives in many countries really fast, so it was impossible for us to build everything in-house. How can different providers can help us to launch in different countries at this, faster and in an easiest way?
Well, I think you first need to kind of assess which kind of countries and which needs these countries have. And finding the right partner is, of course, something crucial to your growth as a company. I think there's first an assessment in terms of product and business, two teams that need to be perfectly aligned, and especially when rolling out to different countries. And as I said, assessing every country locally, finding the right people also on the ground that can guide you through that process, and that should make economic sense for you as well. I mean, that should be quicker than going by your own or than building things from the ground directly from your teams. So I think that's a bit the general or the strategic idea.
Yeah, I can just touch on a very specific example of how we did this when we expanded. And I mentioned that ID verification for consumers was one of the challenges that we had. In Singapore, there's a national digital ID infrastructure that's API-driven from the government. We can tap into an API, pull information on a consumer with their consent, and onboard them to our platform in seconds. But as soon as we go to a new market in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Thailand, this type of infrastructure doesn't exist, and we need to use alternative service providers that are localized for those markets. So we built the middle layer in between so that we can plug into multiple service providers in order to get the same outcome, the same solution, but being able to do it in multiple markets. And we needed to make sure that we knew who the players were in each of those markets, do the research, get some guidance on the ground to the earlier point.
Yeah. My feeling is that it is getting more and more complex because basically the lines between a competitor and a partner are getting very type of weak. And it's a little bit like an art. I mean, for example, we would love to cooperate with Belvo, but there is also a line in which we compete. So it's you know that the very question is, what is the very core you need to own and control? Other than that, I mean, there is no other way to grow as to partnering, obviously.
Yeah, I would say probably very. So agree a lot on that. I mean, as a business, you have to really define what's your focus and what is that you are adding to the market. And today we need to be hyper focused. And there's one thing that we do well, and everything else, is it worth building? Is it worth buying? Right. So as long as it does not compete with your value proposition and it doesn't make you weaker, you have to analyze, right? So is it better for me to build or buy? And it depends on how. So can I find a partner that provides high quality service? How dependent I'm going to be on those partners, and also very importantly, I think a lot of people might compare just the cost of building in-house versus buying it outside, but it's the opportunity cost. Are you going to have your team focused on building something that is not core for you, and versus having your team fully focused on one specific mission? And that central piece of being really on target, being very focused, is actually, I mean, it has a lot more impact than one would imagine. Right? So having the teams distracted on things that might be needed for your business but not core, I mean, it kind of diminishes the vision that even your employees in the company have around like what is important for you. So it's I think it's a tough conversation when you analyze providers versus building in-house. I think even for infrastructure players, we have the same question. So there are some layers that we have to define. Do we connect to other players, or do we go even one step down? So I think it's this balance between focus and opportunity cost.
And also on that, sorry, because sometimes it's not only building, it's also maintaining, of course, and building maybe some X hours or some hundreds of thousands of euros, but it's also then having the teams that can provide the maintenance of that service, and also the regulatory part. I mean, sometimes as infrastructure providers have been pursuing a license so that others can piggy blind as well. And that's also super, super useful. Sometimes it's not only about technology, but also about the regulation.
Yeah.
Any other best practices that you think that is helpful for these kind of integrations that sometimes are really complex when you're trying to do it?
I had a boss at Citibank many years ago that told me a sentence that is very clever. He told me, you cannot be all things to all people, which sounds very stupid, but if you are a 15-people company or a 30-people company, that becomes more true than ever. So it's what Uri was saying, how you stay focused and control and develop your core capabilities to make a difference.
And validate that. We didn't want to build a middle layer infrastructure. It was a necessity. Ideally, we would have direct connections and similar type of setup that we did in Singapore, but distracting the team, having them dedicate that time to building that infrastructure was necessary, but it wasn't something that we wanted to prioritize, but for expansion, we just had to do it.
Okay, coming back to the topic of building an all-in-one platform, which are the key blocks or components that you need to build it?
I think it's a tough question, right?
Any specific technologies, APIs?
Yeah, I mean, we can probably find a lot of examples of all-in-one platforms and how they use different building blocks. So I wouldn't say that there is one all-in-one type of application that could describe what companies do, right? So, I mean, you can be talking about like all-in-one, I don't know, like marketplace where you can have an account where you can make payments, you have a credit card, you can actually get a loan. So for that type of all-in-one service, so obviously you have the first things that you have to do when you tap into financial services is the movement of money, because these are platforms that essentially they get into financial services because they move a lot of money and they process a lot of payments. The next, I think, most logical step is allowing people to hold funds in accounts. So then is when you start talking about, I mean, how do you navigate the regulatory landscape, and how do you build a product that is actually complying with all the regulations that are locally, etc. And then that's when you start adding components to the entire flow that can really improve the user experience and make a difference, right? So if you think about a marketplace where you can store money, where you can make payments, why is it different from something else, right? It may be because it's easier to get a loan. It may be because it's actually easier to get approved a credit card because you already have transactionality there. You have to really understand where your users are going to, where your users are coming from and what is the benefit that you're going to provide them in the financial services. So I would say there are many, many building blocks. I think it's a hard question for me to answer, and I think it's very specific for the value proposition of the business.
Yes, I completely agree. From Gif's side, one of the main blocks is the regulatory side. To be honest with you, to be able to operate in more than 30 countries in less than 1 year, we had to partner with different providers because we were not able to operate by ourselves in, for example, here in UK and Europe. So how will you solve a problem like regulatory? Will you partner with some companies that they are already on those countries operating? How will you do it?
If you ask me, yes, of course, because that's what we provide. But I guess I'm a bit biased. But yes, of course, I mean, also aligned with the previous idea, doing a proof of concept or kind of doing an MVP of what you want to achieve, it's really valid. You can rely on a partner maybe for a temporary phase. You prove your concept, you have your results, you analyze them, and then you start building your own product. And I think that also relates to the modular approach that kind of the all-in-one fintechs have, which is, okay, I want to have all-in-one, but I want to arrive there, step by step, kind of proving that every step that I'm taking is correct. And that's why relying on partners, even if it's for country expansion, product expansion, or just because you want to test something that has come upon your customers, it's super valid. Even if you're planning to do it for the rest of your product life, or even if it's just for a phase of testing.
Yeah. In our case, in terms of building blocks, we have learned something the hard way. I mean, we sell to big merchants, big gateways on one side, and big banks on the other side. And basically, very long sales cycles. And then on the bank side, once the sales cycle is completed, you go into the prioritization of consumer-facing technology. And at the end, we have built like a super simple package in which they tell the bank, listen, you don't need to take a final decision, and we will give you a hosted solution for the customer experience within your secure environment. And that has alleviated the process enormously.
Very interesting.
Okay, so one interesting thing, you were speaking about expansion and different things. For example, at Gives, since the day one, we were thinking to be a global corporate provider, financial provider. If you are starting a startup from the scratch and you have to think about the expansion, you have to think about to build one company, which will be the steps that you will do? You will first build something in Spain or Mexico, for example, and then look at the different data and try to expand to different countries. What do you think that we should do to create a all-in-one platform or any kind of financial tech company to be able to provide this service? You will focus just in one country, you will focus around the world?
One thing I would say is that unless your business model is based on the value proposition of internationalization, you should be very focused in one country. I mean, expansion is extremely hard. And operating in different countries, different regulations, different cultures, it is a lot harder than one would imagine. So, I mean, a company like Jeeves has been born as a platform that wants to operate directly in different countries. That is what is going to add value to your customers. For companies like ours, for example, I mean, we operate Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil. Is extremely hard to operate in these three countries, and then you have to prioritize resources, and I'm going to develop this, I'm going to develop that. So I think the best strategy is always to start in one market, except, obviously, if what you want to do is to prove that the value that you're going to add is on being present in different markets, right? But to me, by no means, the focus is important, and validating single markets before expanding is key.
I completely agree. I think being consumer-facing and trying to acquire customers in a single market after, say, your first fundraise and trying to utilize the funds in an efficient manner, you've got to be really focused on that market. You do need to pick up on some cues, though, on whether or not product market fit could be better in a different jurisdiction as well. So for us, the first 12 months, we were really focused on Singapore. It's where we raised money. It's where our headquarters was. It's where our staff were. So for us, getting that market right was really important. But we were also able to start doing a bit of selling into Malaysia. It's a 45-minute flight. It's very easy to be there on a frequent basis. And a lot of our customers, on the merchant side at least, in Singapore, also operated in Malaysia. So we were able to, at least after the 12-month mark, start to do some business cross-border, but it was very, very challenging. And even hiring there was quite difficult as well. So yeah, the talent aspect, the regulatory aspect, setting up, and focus again of distracting staff potentially to build something that's fit for purpose for a new market is a big trade-off.
Yeah.
And even having a regulatory common background, such as our example, right? We are European, so we hold a European license. So from day one, we could serve companies from across the European Economic Area. And although that, we found that every time we launched a new country, even though we were covered, localization was key. And I mean, most of you will come from Spain, and you will understand how it's like to have negotiations with El Banco de España or Iberpay or other institutions. It takes time. Also localizing small things such as onboarding links, ID verification, etc., etc. So meaning that, okay, we're fully regulatory covered, we can work across European countries, but then again, localization is key to understand the cultural and the day-to-day of that country.
So I guess it very much depends on also on the type of customers you're serving. So, for example, in our case, we were to visit a big subscription merchant, and they would tell us, listen, come back to me when you have banks, at least in Mexico and Brazil and another country. Or you would talk to an international bank, and they would tell you, unless you have merchants in 3 countries, don't talk to me. So we didn't have a choice. I think it would have been much better to concentrate in one market, but we didn't have the choice.
Okay, so we have in Jeeves one sentence that is be a global company and operate as local company. So one of the most important things when you are building a company is the people, the team that we hire. What do you think that is more interesting? To have a team concentrate in one country or try to have multiple teams in different countries in which you are operating? What will you do if you have to do it again?
From the talent perspective, I would say let them work whatever they want, if it makes sense. But this is maybe from an HR perspective. Strategically, I guess you will always have a headquarter. Sometimes it's more virtual or hybrid or even physical. We believe in an hybrid model, although everyone is free to work a bit from their home, etc. But besides the headquarters, I am super fond of having local teams. And a local team, in our case, for example, it's someone that it's especially in the law, so a compliance officer, marketing, sales, etc. But for instance, product people could work from Paris or from Germany, because we today have tools to kind of communicate and have a proper, working framework. But yes, I am a firm thinker that being on the ground, it's important, especially for business development.
I would probably, for us, I would disagree a bit on one point, which is, for example, the product team. We operate, I mean, probably Europe might be a bit similar across countries, but for us, the local product knowledge is super important. And having the people who are going to develop your technology and your product be able to feel, be able to experience, be able to be at the other side of the spectrum, because we provide infrastructure, so being able to test the products of our clients, being able to understand how banks operate in different regions. So we've felt the difficulty of trying to build product without being super local, and that has been challenged. So in Belgium we say the same thing. So in Brazil you have to be Brazilians, in Mexico you have to be Mexican, in Colombia Colombians, and that not only agree on sales, marketing, etc. But for us, product and technology development is also something where we need local knowledge.
Okay, from the customer perspective, why is more interesting to have a multi-financial service all-in-one that have different providers? I don't know if you understand my question.
No.
Like, for example, at Gives we offer debit cards, credit cards, corporate cards. We also offer cross-borders. Why is better to have one platform like Gives instead of having a specific companies?
I think it's very different. I mean, you may need to have legal entities in several places, but unless you do the core central, escalating properly will be very, very difficult. That would be my feeling.
I think solving one core pain point, we talked a bit earlier about what is your focus, what are you really solving for your customer base. Over time, that can expand into other things as you understand, maybe have the local product perspective and understand the challenges on the ground. But really solving that problem better than anybody else can is going to give you a lot more stickiness with your customer base as well, because it's not that easy to replicate what you're providing.
Okay, so we have one minute left. I don't know if you want to share any ideas that you have in your minds that you think that is useful for the audience, or probably we can ask the audience if they have any questions.
Yes, sir.
Questions? So anyone has any question for the speakers? No? Not really? Anything to conclude? No? Okay. So thank you very much to be part of this panel. Hopefully we can help you with some insights, and if you have any questions, please let us know. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.